A well-regulated militia be necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Thanks so much for tuning in to another edition of Bearing Arms, Cam and Company. My name is Cam Edwards. It is great to have you with us. Hopefully you had a good weekend. Whether you were at home, whether you headed out, maybe to pick up some essential groceries or things of that nature. We actually had some essential kind of groceries to acquire over the weekend. We picked up 2 pigs. So, yes, they will be food. These are not pets. But we did get out and we socially distanced. We went to a farm about 30 miles away from where we live, picked up 2 Berkshire Black Hog mixes, about 2 months old. But the farmer that we bought them from was great. He carried them over in his, holding on to the back legs there, dropped them into our dog crate that we used to transport them. We didn't get within 6 feet of one another. We were able to do this safely and responsibly. By the way, it was interesting. We were talking and he's sold out. He is sold out of pigs right now. He's actually looking for more pigs that he can sell because he has so many buyers, which I think goes hand in hand with the stories that we've seen around the country about an increase in just like people are, buying toilet paper, they're buying firearms and ammunition, they're buying chickens. Yeah. They're buying chickens because, hey, chickens are a renewable resource. What other animal poops breakfast for you? So I think we're starting to see more Americans who at least can do this, who are in a position to be more self-reliant and self-sufficient. They are trying to do that. Whether it's through the purchase of livestock, they're growing big gardens. They're acquiring firearms ammunition. I'm curious, and one of the things we'll be trying to investigate this week is whether or not reloading supplies have also become more popular. That's sort of I wouldn't say it's a niche, but it is a smaller part of the gun owning community. But as more Americans are becoming gun owners, I'm kind of curious, are more Americans learning how to reload as well? We also saw more Americans heading out to protest these stay-at-home orders over the weekend. There were demonstrations around the country as we enter into, week 6, I guess, for many places. Staying on lockdown, and the argument is growing louder by the day that the cure cannot be worse than the disease, even as the disease is pretty darn bad. We spoke with my friend Jim Geraghty from National Review Online, who I think has been doing outstanding work in providing facts. And by the way, also really going after China hard. We didn't talk much about that with Jim Geraghty, but we did talk about the impact on our constitutional rights during these shutdown emergencies and the debate between open it up and keep it locked down, and whether or not there's not some actual middle ground to be found there somewhere in between those two positions. Take a look and a listen. Jim Geraghty, how are you, sir? It's good talking with you today.
Cam, it is always good to be with you, even if we have to be socially distant, like we are right now, by a couple hundred miles.
Well, it was nice. I haven't been doing a lot of virtual happy hours, but we did get together on Saturday night, from hundreds of miles apart, and we're actually able to engage in some, frivolity and some good conversation. And one of the things that we've been talking about, I know you've been writing a lot about this, is the debate over when do we start to open things up, right? We've seen protests now take place around the country, including, states like Maryland, Minnesota, Los Angeles area, Huntington Beach, California. I think had a pretty big demonstration over the weekend. Obviously, we've been talking a lot about this in terms of gun shows and gun stores around the country, because in some states they've been declared non-essential businesses, and they've been ordered to close. There was actually a gun store in New Mexico that reopened despite the governor's order. They got a cease and desist order from the New Mexico State Police over the weekend, so they're now closed once again. And they're saying, listen, we're not trying to go back to business as usual. But let us open up and let us have, limited hours. We can do this via appointment. We can practice the same social distancing measures that other essential businesses are operating under. But there's a really good chance that if you keep us closed down, we're not going to be able to open up. And there are, how many tens of thousands of businesses around the country can make that exact same argument right now, Jim?
Yeah. So this morning in my Morning Jolt newsletter, Cam, I wrote about the phenomenon of hospitals and the fact that pretty much all across the country, I realize I'm speaking about a topic that is near and dear to your heart, almost everyone has been asked to put aside all what they call elective procedures. And when people hear that, they might be picturing, plastic surgery or something that really, is not that health related and could be easily put off with minimal consequences. It's more than that. In some cases, as you know, it's cancer treatments, it's hip replacements, it's knee replacements, basically anything involving a doctor that does not involve, this person is going to die if they don't get this procedure right now. They've had to put it on hold. Now, today is Monday. We are beginning what is week 6 for most Americans. Varying degrees of quarantines, self-quarantines, restrictions, et cetera, et cetera. That's a long time. As I wrote it out today, I don't think you can say that the American people have not made a good faith effort to try to minimize their social interaction, to minimize the stress on hospitals and doctors' offices and the supplies of personal protective equipment and all that stuff. I think as we start hitting 6 weeks, it's time to start reopening the country in a safe way, in a smart way, probably in a gradual way that leaves some people frustrated. But the aspect of the hospitals, it has had 2 fascinating ramifications of this. One is these elective procedures, and again, some of these are very necessary procedures, are generally how hospitals make their money. COVID patients coming in are not going to be, most insurance companies have said, we're going to cover this. But even then, it's costing the hospital something. One figure says $40,000 per person. Now, that's the average. Some people are going to need minimal care. Some people are going to be in the ICU for a long period of time. But nonetheless, hospitals are not making money on coronavirus cases. They don't want to make money on coronavirus cases. They want to solve it. But the problem is when you don't have any of the other money coming in from all the other procedures, a whole bunch of these hospitals in the United States have had to lay people off. They've had to take full-time workers and put them to part-time. In some cases, they've had furloughs, and they said, look, we're hoping this is temporary. This is probably going to be temporary, but for now, we just don't have the money coming in to pay you to keep you doing this. One of the Department of Labor estimates puts it at 40,000 people in the medical profession have been laid off or temporary furloughed during a pandemic, during a public health crisis. And so Texas, your home or former home state of Oklahoma and Alaska have already said, okay, it is now, we now permit hospitals to go back, do these procedures. Are there going to have to be certain precautions that need to be taken? Absolutely. A friend of mine recently had a child had to go to the emergency room. Everything turned out okay. And up in my neck of the woods, the hospital had a COVID and a coronavirus entrance and a non-coronavirus entrance. And you're being treated, completely different staff, completely different situations. Probably every hospital is going to have some precautions like that. You don't want people, particularly anybody who might have a compromised immune system, being around an area where other people are being treated for the coronavirus. But it's time to get certainly these hospitals open, local doctors' offices. There's really not much. If pediatricians can separate the sick and the well, they should be able to do this. Dentists, dermatologists, there are all kinds of doctors in this country who have voluntarily said, okay, we're going to be on standby. We don't want to be using up the masks. We don't want to be using up all this other material that needs to be stockpiled for all these people dealing with coronavirus patients. But now we're at 5 weeks. Now these folks have really been taking a big financial hit. That's just in the medical profession. Mm-hmm. And it seems like to me the easiest no-brainer, okay, we can start this process to start opening up again. All these people out there who are protesting, I wish they'd wear masks. I wish they'd stand a certain distance apart. But by and large, my heart is with them. I think these people have a very reasonable, hey, we wanted to do the right thing. We want to do the right thing. We want to help people. A lot of these restrictions have been put in place by governors don't make a ton of sense. I'll kick around Governor Gretchen Whitmer up in Michigan, just because it's the easiest example. The restriction was not on every single, you can't buy seeds anywhere. It was any big box store. Basically, if your square footage of your store was more than 50,000 square feet, they didn't want you selling seeds and garden supplies, furniture, paint, and there was like 1 or 2 other things that were just really random. And the thing that you almost want to wish somebody had been in the room with the governor to say, Governor, it's not the seeds or the paint that caused coronavirus, right? It's how close you are to other people, right? And so the real issue is, right now, most places for a while in Virginia, every store was trying to get by with less than 10 people inside. Supermarkets are having those kind of restrictions, drugstores, any place that's considered essential and people need to get in there. It's like, okay, we're going to let you stay open. We're going to let people in there, but you can't have big crowds. You got to ask people to try to stay apart. I understand. I guess some supermarkets, they now have you should only go down with your carts in one direction on certain aisles, and then the other aisles, you should only go the other way. I just want to tell the supermarkets, if they can't get this in the parking lot, they're not going to be able to understand this concept inside the supermarket aisles. But anyway, but the idea is like, okay, it's not the stuff in the store, unless you're pawing it and, coughing on it, or God forbid, or anything like that. Particularly if you're wearing a mask, maybe if you're wearing gloves or something, as long as you're keeping your distance from people, you should be okay. So on paper, any store that is enacting these kind of common sense restrictions should be okay. All of these things about places shutting down parks and wide open spaces. Look, first of all, there are some reports indicating vitamin D is good for you against the people with lower levels of vitamin D are having a tougher time fighting off the virus. Some folks I usually get along with really jumped down my throat Friday for saying this. And it was not to say vitamin D cures coronavirus. It was just this indication that, hey, low levels of vitamin D probably make it a little tougher for your body to fight this off. So, if you can get out there in the sun, go out and do it. That's why when people are flipping out about the restrictions in Florida for the beaches. Look, as long as you're 6 feet away from everybody, you're probably going to be fine. That's the sound of me. That's not really wood. There's some wood. So I'm frustrated by this. By the way, I think some governors are making bad decisions that are tainting these probably very necessary restrictions and recommendations in the eyes of a lot of Americans.
I'm with you. And I think that, maybe it's a chicken and egg thing. But I see the absurd restrictions. I think, human nature response, or at least their innately American response to seeing these dumb rules put in place is, well, I'm going to disobey them, to heck with you. And then you get into those aspects of, or that attitude of, well, I'm not wearing a mask just because, you tell me that you want me to wear a mask. Well, I'm not gonna. I think that we can debate what the numbers of COVID deaths actually are and the hospitalizations. And I know that there are people who say, well, a lot of these deaths are being overestimated. Look, even if you want to say that half of the COVID deaths in this country are not actually because of COVID, they're because of underlying conditions or whatever, we have still had, in less than 2 months, more people die of the coronavirus than were murdered in all of 2018. So this is a real thing. This is a real phenomenon. We do not have a treatment. We do not have a vaccine. It is still going to be out there when we start relaxing these stay-at-home orders, as I think we're going to have to do, as you say, because of the economic impact. But that's where you get into having to be smart about this, right? And this is one of the things that has been so frustrating as I watch this play out, is that I think that there is real common sense to be found, but I don't hear it being argued. It seems like we've managed to turn this incredible moment in time into just another political football where we can point fingers at the people we disagree with and say that they're idiots and they're un-American, as opposed to recognizing that, yes, the economic damage is real, and it's going to be long lasting, and we need to do what we can to open up the economy. At the same time, the coronavirus is real. Its effects, too, are likely to be long lasting, permanent for tens of thousands of Americans, and we can't take that lightly either. Is it possible, Jim, for us to have a honest to goodness adult conversation about this, or is this just the way politics has become these days?
Cam, I do wonder how much stir craziness is a factor in people's decision making over this, in the sense that, I believe the first community in the United States that said they were going to have a quarantine over a response to the coronavirus was Hoboken, New Jersey. And when I first heard this, I was rolling my eyes and saying, guys, the virus is every bit as contagious at daytime as it is during the nighttime. This is not a vampire virus that only comes out when the moon is full, And then I went and looked up what the mayor actually said. And he said, look, we have this from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. or something like that. And it just was not that they were going to arrest you if you were out on those hours. They did not want to go out and harass someone walking their dog or something like that. I guess their problem was that people were starting to congregate outside of convenience stores and restaurants that were still doing delivery and takeout. By the way, Cam, I don't know about you. I believe takeout mixed drinks are one of the great innovations we've been forced to have in this crisis, and I hope we keep this long afterwards. But basically, people were starting to come together in groups in these parking lots, and the police wanted an excuse. People recognized, okay, this is not social distancing. This is getting people together. This is enhancing the risk of somebody catching coronavirus. So it gives the police a reason to say, hey, you know what? Break it up. You guys really got to get home. This is for your own health and for the health of everyone around you. They were not eager to go around arresting people. In addition, for a bunch of reasons, but high among them, Cam. Notice I almost called you Greg, but I stopped myself. That basically, arresting someone requires getting within 6 feet of them. So that's one more reason you don't want to arrest people you don't have to. And it sounded like the mayor of Hoboken was being like he just wanted to discourage bad behavior. This was a tool in the toolbox, and he did not see any value in locking people up left and right and stuff like that. Early on, I think most people, the more, look, not interacting with people is a very strange and alienating set of circumstances, right? There's a reason prison reform advocates hate solitary confinement. We as human beings want to interact with people. And our government has said to us, other than your family, other than whoever you're living with right now, you should not interact with people other than through screens like this. This is freaking people out. This is not natural. This is not normal. We have family gatherings we've had to miss. We've had vacations we haven't gone on. We've had the people at the corner store or coffee shop who we usually say hello to. All these little social interactions we haven't been able to have. And I think this, this is, we've heard the reports of anxieties up. Cam, there are rumors people are drinking more than they usually do during this. I wouldn't know about that kind of stuff. The government is asking people in the name of public health to live under some very unusual and I think psychologically stressing conditions. So they should not be the least bit surprised that after 3 weeks turns into 4 weeks, turns into 5 weeks, a bunch of people are like, okay, I've had enough of this. And so now the question should not be Gretchen Whitmer imitating the principal in Breakfast Club. Oh, you want like that? How about 2 more weeks? How do you like them apples, huh? I could do this all day. The wall just got 10 feet taller. Instead of that kind of attitude, a sense of, okay, we hear you. We know this has been really hard on you. Here's the steps we're going to take bit by bit to open up society in a safe way. And if you did that, I think it would. I think the moment this turns into a test of wills, the virus wins, Cam.
Yeah, and I think yes, I think that's accurate. I think the American people also are going to win that battle of wills with the government. But again, I mean, you go back to some of the actions of these executives, whether it's Governor Whitmer, Governor Murphy in New Jersey the other night was asked about his orders, which originally had shut down gun stores, and there was an individual who was actually arrested for leading a protest in New Jersey. And I think it was Tucker Carlson who asked Governor Murphy about, the constitutional concerns here. And Murphy said, well, that's just above my pay grade. No, it's not. No. I mean, that's the other thing is that.
What's your oath?
Exactly.
What do you do when you're putting your hand on the Bible? You're raising your hand,
So, you do have, look, you've got economic concerns, you've got health concerns, and you have constitutional concerns. Mm-hmm. And I realize that for some Americans, those constitutional concerns are a distant third place, right, in terms of what they're worried about. But that's not the case for every American. And frankly, I don't think that it should be the case for every American. We are seeing this bring out the worst in some public officials and some of the orders that have been handed down. The dad who was arrested for and cuffed for playing tetherball at a park with their 6-year-old. Again, if you want to see civil disobedience to these orders, keep doing dumb stuff like that. Yeah. Because you will get more. And you're right. I mean, I think your advice to these executives of treat the American people like they're adults. Don't treat them like they're children to be lectured and punished and sent to their room or sent to the corner, but actually level with them. And, sadly, I think that is has been few and far between that we have seen elected officials actually do that. There is so much finger pointing and finger wagging going on right now that you're right. I think it is getting the backs of a lot of Americans up.
Cam, I just want to note that there's something about Democrats named Phil who end up sneering at the Constitution, because way back in 2009, 2010, during the Obamacare debate, Phil Hare, a Democratic congressman from Illinois, he's holding a town hall meeting. He was going to support what became the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. And they said, what about the Constitution? And Hare answered, well, I don't care about the Constitution. I want to help people. And the people who were recording him were just like, woo! And he's like, what are you talking about? And I remember looking at that and saying, well, that's it. That's the end of his career. It was this little-known Republican challenger named Bobby Schilling. You may have noticed, Cam, I really don't like Democrats named Phil, and I really like Republicans named Bobby. But Bobby Schilling, right? And Bobby Schilling was this no-name, not well-known figure. And I was like, Bobby Schilling's got a chance to win this because this is the sort of moment that gets viral and gets people who are living very far from this district in Illinois to reach into their pockets and says, I'm going to give $20 just to beat that SOB who had the cojones to say, who cares about the Constitution? That's what you take your oath to, And Schilling won. That was 2010. It was a very good year for Republicans all across the Tea Party way. But I think anytime you find yourself uttering, now, a responsible lawmaker can say, look, we are dealing with a viral pandemic that requires quarantine conditions. These are very extraordinary circumstances. The Supreme Court has upheld the ability to hold this in very limited circumstances. And here's the real problem. Almost all of these orders that have come down have been said indefinitely. Mm-hmm. We'll let you know when you're allowed to start doing things again. And that freaks people out. And I think with very good reason. Now, if they said, and this has been my attitude towards school closings, this has been my attitude towards business closing, everything. If you say, look, we're doing this for 2 weeks, we're going to see where things stand in 2 weeks, and we'll let you know. And if the cases load is getting worse and more people are dying, okay, then you lay out the facts and say, based on this, what we've seen, we don't think it's safe to reopen this right now. And I think people will be a lot more understanding of that. Like I said, treat them like grown-ups, treat them like responsible adults and say, look, hey, I, as your leader of your state or your community, this is the information I have. This is what I see. This is what the health experts and the doctors are telling me. I want to minimize the spread of this. I think we have to do this. Let's try this for another X number of weeks. Not a lot. Weeks, not months. And I think probably every 2 weeks you should be reevaluating. And see. And if people have that light at the end of the tunnel, that sense of, okay, if we can get to the beginning of May, if we can get to the end of the first week, whatever that time is, I think it makes every day of this quarantine a little bit easier to deal with. Now, here's the thing: I think everybody in the business world, and even a bunch of people in medical world, recognize this is not sustainable, right? So the question is, what does a new normal look like? And maybe it's people going into stores, everybody wearing masks. It'll look weird, it'll kind of freak us out, but you know what? They've been doing this in Asia for a long time. This, letting people know this is how you can get, maybe restaurants with 1/3 capacity. A lot of restaurants won't like that, but you know what? That's 1/3 more capacity than they have right now. Give people some sense of when they can get to what we feel like we've all lost during this pandemic. Mm-hmm. And then you'll see, I think, a lot more cooperation. If you really believe, Cam, every single commercial I watch begins, in these uncertain times. And, thankfully, it's not the fault of a particular public relations executive over in London who's promoting these things. But all of them have this tone of, we're all in this together. Well, if we're all in this together, talk to us like adults. If we're all in this together, put all the information on the table. If you really feel like this is a partnership, act like the public is a partner with you instead of some sort of peons to be, talked down to and lectured and, punished when they misbehave.
Absolutely. Jim Geraghty, I think we're going to leave it there, man. I appreciate you coming on the program, and hope we get a chance to do this again. In person would be great, but, I'll settle for this for the next few weeks, but do appreciate your time here in Bearing Arms Cam and Company.
Yeah, and the upside is, it's not like I'm going anywhere.
All right, well, then that gives me an excuse to have you back again even sooner. Jim Geraghty from National Review joining us here on Bearing Arms Cam and Company. All right, now let's get to today's armed citizen story, our good deed of the day, as well as our recidivist report, which comes from Hot Springs, Arkansas. So check this out. This gentleman right here, 21-year-old Evan Drake Johnson, taken into custody last month in connection with a drive-by shooting, taken into custody last week in connection with a drive-by shooting. Yeah, how does that happen? According to the Hot Springs paper, Johnson was taken into custody just before 9 p.m. last Thursday night on 2 counts of attempted murder, charged with 2 counts of criminal attempt to commit first-degree murder, punishable by up to 30 years in prison, simultaneous possession of drugs and firearms, which is punishable by up to life in prison. Wow. Even more than trying to actually murder somebody. Possession of a controlled substance, methamphetamine, and theft by receiving of a firearm, as well as a misdemeanor count of possession of marijuana. The drug charges stem from allegations that Johnson was in the middle of a drug deal at a local convenience store when Hot Springs police arrested him on felony warrants, being held on about $200,000 bond at the moment. According to a probable cause affidavit on the attempted murder and gun charges last Monday, a week ago, police responded to the 300 block of Park Avenue there in Hot Springs regarding shots fired. When they arrived, they spoke to a man and woman who said that they'd been shot at moments earlier by a suspect that they identified as Johnson. Both of them stated they were walking north up the street when a newer model Dodge Charger pulled up next to him. The driver asked what his name was as he walked towards the vehicle. As he approached, Johnson turned to a man in the front passenger seat and asked him, "Is that him?" Passenger said, "Yep." At that point, Johnson pointed a black handgun at both him and the woman and fired about 4 shots as they ran away. Shortly before 6 p.m. on Monday, Officer Thomas Plummer spotted a Dodge Charger with an expired tag, noted the occupants and vehicle matched the description that had been put out earlier. He arrested the vehicle, or he stopped the vehicle, arrested the driver, identified as Johnson, as well as the passenger, Peyton Daniel Wickland, age 18, both on drug-related charges. Johnson was released in that case on $19,500 bond. And then there were warrants out for these latest charges, or the charges actually related back to March 5th when he was charged on 2 counts of aggravated assault, stemming from allegations that he was involved in a drive-by shooting on February 19th. He was released on a $25,000 bond shortly after he was arrested, which is why again, this individual was back on the street just weeks after being arrested for a previous drive-by shooting. Now, bond has been raised, again, originally is for the first set of charges, $25,000 bond. This new set of charges, a $200,000 bond. So perhaps young Mr. Johnson will be staying behind bars a little bit longer, but again, accused of a drive-by, released, and then weeks later, very same thing happens. Meanwhile, I've got an update for you as far as our armed citizen story goes on a story out of Philadelphia that we brought you last week. The 24-year-old concealed carry holder who shot 3 teens on a SEPTA bus in Philadelphia still not facing any charges. The district attorney, Larry Krasner, says the 24-year-old concealed carry holder is a security guard at the University of Pennsylvania. And Krasner said it's going to take some time to determine whether or not charges should be filed. What we know is that according to the surveillance video, 3 individuals on this bus approached the 24-year-old security guard. There was an altercation that started. That is when the security guard pulled out his firearm and shot the 3 young suspects, all of them expected to recover from their injuries. The concealed carry holder remained on scene, was cooperative with police. The district attorney there in Philadelphia says, "We're continuing to work with the police on this investigation once we've come to specific conclusions about what to do in light of the complications here, in light of the fact that we have 3 young people who were shot, and we have to make sure that we are fair to everyone. This will take a little bit of time." He said, "But I can tell you that we are looking very closely at everything." According to the Philadelphia Inquirer, police said the man told him he was sitting in the back of the bus when the teens attacked him, and then he pulled out his gun and shot them in self-defense. The fact that the district attorney has not charged this guy makes me think that the evidence is pretty clear that he was acting in self-defense. The fact that the district attorney is talking about being fair to everyone makes me suspect that the district attorney is looking for something to charge this concealed carry holder with. DA Larry Krasner is a very quote-unquote progressive DA. He is one who is not a big fan of keeping people behind bars on large bonds. He has been accused of having a catch-and-release mentality when it comes to individuals who are illegally carrying firearms who are caught in the city of Philadelphia. And I suspect that the district attorney would love to make an example out of this concealed carry holder. Again, the investigation continues, but we are keeping a very, very close eye on this story, and we will let you know any new developments as they become available. Finally today, our good deed of the day from Fox 6 in, where is Fox 6? Where is Fox 6? Wisconsin. From West Allis, Wisconsin, where Officer Charles Clark recently received his stimulus check, and he thought to himself, you know, I don't need this. I'm employed. I'm working. He said, this community has given the police department and officers so much throughout the years, and now it is my turn. So Officer Clark is donating every penny of that stimulus check to somebody in need. He said, I was actually cleaning up a crash scene with a couple of firemen, and we got to talking about it. And I said, look, I'm getting a check. I don't need it. Somebody else out there needs it more than I do. He says, I'm in a position right now that as an essential employee, I'm still getting paid. And the way I look at it is there are definitely a lot more people out there that need more help than I do. So as of yesterday, he said he's still trying to figure out where his stimulus check is going to go to. He said, through some friends and family, I've identified 3 people or 3 families that need some help. Maybe this helps a couple of people out for a couple of days, gets them some food or something. He said that his hope is to be able to pass the money along in the next couple of days. And he says, I encourage anybody that can. Just takes a couple of questions asking, do you know anybody that needs some help? So in the right place, at the right time, and I think doing the right thing. West Allis Police Officer Charles Clark, we thank you, sir, for your very good deed. That is going to do it for this edition of Bearing Arms Cam & Company. Want to thank you for being a part of the program. We'll be back tomorrow with the latest Second Amendment news and information from all around the nation. But in the meantime, don't forget, you can check out bearingarms.com throughout the day. We are constantly updating the website. You can also subscribe to Town Hall Media on YouTube or the Bearing Arms Cam & Company podcast on Apple Podcasts. That way you never miss a program. And coming up later in the week, going to be doing a VIP Gold Editors Chat with my friend Ed Morrissey from Hot Air. So don't forget, you can become a VIP Gold member of Town Hall Media. Help support the Second Amendment journalism we do here each and every day, plus get access to exclusive analysis, commentary, and things like those live chats. We certainly do thank you for your support. We thank you for watching. Until we talk again, be safe, be well, be free.